Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge Day number 3. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and a big good morning, afternoon, or evening to everyone joining me live here on Behance, including we've got Lee and Lena and Nyasha, Maggie, and Dehanjay, possibly. If I mispronounce anyone's name, I do apologize. Tim, Antonio, Michael, Alexandra, Joss. Welcome, everyone. If you are tuning in live, let me know in the chat. Throw it in there where you're tuning in from. I'm streaming live right now from beautiful and very hot. It's right now 92 degrees, Los Angeles. Ugh, it's gross. But anyways, welcome to day number 3. We're going to jump straight into this, and we're going to hop over to my screen over here, and we're going to go over all the goodness that is the Daily Creative Challenge. So, if you haven't checked out the challenge yet, head on over to behance.net/challenge/XD. Hey, Dana from Washington, welcome. So, this is the landing page where you're going to find all the information on the challenge. And if you haven't pressed that big blue register button at the top yet, definitely press that big blue register button at the top. That way you get notified when we do release new challenges every single day, Monday to Friday at around 8 o'clock in the morning. So we've got people from India and Nigeria and Greece and the UK, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it is currently midnight in India. So thank you to everyone over on that side of the world for tuning in so late, or I guess so early, depending on how you think about it. A lot of people from India, that's awesome. It's 100 degrees in Texas, oh boy. Marissa, I hope you're staying cool. All right, so again, you're going to receive a challenge every single day. You can join us in our community chat, which is powered by Discord. If I hop over here, boop, there we go. Here's Discord, and we're just about 20,000 designers in there, which is crazy, and all of you are amazing. We got a lot of different channels in Discord, the Creative Challenge channel where Sam posts the new challenge every single day, and I'll get into what today's challenge is in a moment. We've got section for new in XD, pro tips. If you want inspiration, we post things there from time to time. You can ask questions, share tips and tricks, career feedback, a lot of different things that you can just jump into. But we also have a feedback section. So if you're working on the challenge, either this challenge or a past challenge or something completely different, you can hop in here and post all of your amazing work. And there's so much feedback in there. There's so many amazing pieces like this one. J Deep posted this one. I love the colors and I love how clean this one looks. Great job. And I am going to be showing off a few of them, but there are so many to scroll through. It's just amazing to see all of you and all the work that you're coming up with. We also have a bunch of mentors and people from Adobe. We've got Joss and Patricia, and Peter and Tim and Marissa, Gus, Lee, Mesh, Mike, and Sam, of course. So here we go. What do we have planned for today? Well, we're going to be tackling day number 3, which is a road trip randomizer and boop alert. Yes. And I also have the boop animation. Gotta love that, right? So before I get into that, I want to cover a few things very quickly. Some people have been asking where the September update is, even though, it's only the September 5th. The September update is actually not coming. We're not going to have a big update in September. We're going to have bug fixes and things like that. But with Adobe Max coming up, we're skipping a month for the big update. However, we're not saving everything for Adobe Max in October. I was just playing around with the October build, and we have some kind of cool things coming up. I can't tell you just yet, but we have some cool things coming up in October. And then, of course, Adobe Max is in November, and we've got some big things coming up in November. So stick around for that. And I do want to very quickly showcase some of the designs that have come in over the last few days or last 24 hours for yesterday's challenge. And this one I believe was from Omer, if I'm not mistaken, or Mayor. If I mispronounced your name again, I apologize. But I love how he included Julia and me and Tim up the top. And of course, I'm in second place. Please redo this. I'm in first place. I'm just kidding. Great. I love the scrolling. I love how you fix this area at the top. It looks really nice. And then we've got Dan, who put together this leaderboard. Great colors. I love colors, especially when Andrea is hosting the Daily Creative Challenge. She uses just the nicest colors. She's great with colors. And so Dan put together this leaderboard. He also expanded it to show achievements and statistics. And this is what I love about the daily challenges. is, I show off something somewhat basic during this challenge, and you guys just go crazy with it. You really expand on what the different screens and interactions look like, which is really nice. And we've got Jam, who put together this. She also, expanded into show profiles, a login screen. She's building out a design system, which is really nice. And especially if you're trying to attract clients, building out a case study with design systems and colors and fonts and that sort of thing can really go a long way, right? So, and then finally, we've got this one. I don't remember who this was, but if you're in here, let me know. And I love this time trigger animation at the very beginning. And you can click on things to expand. Really cool stuff. All right, so with that being said, we are going to hop over to Adobe XD, and we're going to get started. So again, let me expand this. And the prompt for today is to design the interface of a road trip app. Now this one's a little bit different because what we're doing in this case is it's kind of a surprise, right? What we're going to be doing is we're going to set a distance, like a range from 0 miles to maybe 50 miles. And then the application, the point of it is to pick a random spot that you're going to go to and just, be spontaneous, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just like I do every day with an artboard. I'm going to just simply click. It's going to create an iPhone 10 or 10s. I'm going to move this down here so we can kind of see some of our inspiration down at the bottom. Hey, Kita, welcome, and everyone else joining me who might be just joining. And again, as I explained in the past challenges, I'm using an iPhone 10 and 10s artboard because I do have an iPhone 10, so it's a lot easier for me to prototype it live, and whether it's with a wire or through the Creative Cloud or the Adobe XD app. But of course, if you're designing for Android, definitely feel free to do that. All right, so to make my life a little bit easier and just to brighten this up a little bit, I'm going to start with some assets that I have over in Finder. I've got these illustrations that I grabbed from Adobe Stock, and I'm simply going to drag this into Adobe XD, and XD is going to very easily bring some of this stuff in. And, it looks pretty good. There's this one layer on top, which I just have to delete. Most things transfer over properly, but at the moment, things like blend modes don't transfer yet, but maybe in the future. So I've got this design here, and maybe I'll just want the entire group. So I'm gonna just simply copy it from this document, hop over here and paste it. And there we go. We've now got this really nice looking illustration that we can use. And I'm going to maybe delete the text because I don't need that. Delete all this stuff. Maybe I don't need this stuff at the bottom either. And I can just jump in here and adjust some of this if I needed to. Perfect. All right. All of a sudden, it just looks really cool, right? And if you can grab illustrations from either Adobe Stock or many different places, or if you're an illustrator yourself, you can design in Illustrator, copy and paste over, or you can import it directly onto an artboard, whatever you choose. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna start off by adding some elements to this artboard. We need a button, we need a range slider. So we're gonna start off simple. And we're going to start with a range slider, right? So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool and just draw out an ellipse right here. Just a nice little small ellipse. This will be the minimum range you're willing to go. So we'll start at probably 0 miles. And I might want to pull in some colors that are kind of being used on this illustration. So maybe I want the fill color to be this yellow right down here. So I'm going to simply just use my eyedropper, click on that, and maybe the border color is going to be this road, just like that. And I might want to increase this. Perfect. That looks pretty good right about there. So that's the minimum amount you're going to do. Now we need some sort of a line that kind of connects to the maximum amount. So I'm going to grab my line tool over here to the left and just draw one out just like this across the artboard. I might want to make this a little bit larger. And I'm also going to sample the road color just like that. Perfect. All right, great. And maybe I don't want a solid line. Maybe I want something a little bit dashed or dotted, right? So I can just increase this, maybe work on this. Now it's looking a little bit square. So what I can do is right over here, I can just round out the caps just to give myself, some nice rounded dots that kind of go across this line. Boop, there we go. Now, of course, it's looking a bit strange. So I can just kind of mess with the dashes, the gaps, until I get something that's looking pretty decent. There we go. Perfect. All right, that's looking pretty good. All right, so now what we can do is I can duplicate this over here to the right, and just to make sure everything kind of lines up, I can also drag out some guides. So we have this little area to the left. I can just drag this out. Let's say we'll have this maybe 40 pixels from the left and maybe also 40 pixels from the left. That way I can just line all these elements up and they look great across the artboard. Perfect. All right, so we've got our range slider, and of course we need some indication of what these mean, right? So I'm gonna grab my text tool, shortcut key T, and everyone's booping in the chat. I love this. This might be 0 miles, right? And I'll make this, you know what? I'll also make this the color of the road, but I'll make it probably medium and then really drop this down a touch so it's not super in our faces. There we go, I'll line that up, make sure it's lined up to the horizontal centers. And this one over here might be 50 as well, right? Now, we're gonna get fancy with this one if we have time. So in this case, on this side here, I actually wanna separate these two out, and I'll show you why we're gonna do that in a second. So I'm gonna do 50, and then I'm also gonna do miles. Perfect, so I'm gonna put miles over here, and 50 over here, right? And you're gonna see why I'm doing this in a moment. So we've got this, we've got 0, we've got 50. We also need a button. I'm gonna do this really quickly because we've created buttons before. Grab my rectangle, just draw one out. I'm gonna make we do need a physical boot button, that'd be amazing. I'm gonna just make the corners nice and rounded, and I'll just sample this color down to the bottom, right? Perfect. All right, so we've got our button, and what should the button say? We'll probably have it say, let's go, right? Change that to white, and I'll go for a bold so it's nice and visible. Maybe drop that down just a touch, and maybe I want the, all caps. So I'll just press the uppercase button over here just to convert it very quickly to all caps and just move it into place. All right, now the final thing we might need is we might need some, like a header text. So at the top here, I'm gonna kind of mimic what we had going on in this illustration, and I'm just going to type out trippin', kind of like road trippin', but if you have any other suggestions for the title of this, definitely throw it in the chat. I'm always looking for title names. I'll make this a little bit large, but I want it a little bit fancy, so I think I grabbed the Fenway font. Yeah, got the Fenway font from Adobe Fonts, and make that a little bit large. And very similar to this illustration, I might want a little bit of a shadow, right? So I'm gonna turn on the shadow. I'm gonna sample or choose a little bit of a blue color. Maybe increase that. But I want the blur set to 0. That looks pretty good. And maybe I'll just drop the Y coordinates just a touch. There we go. All right. But again, I would love to see your suggestions on what we should name this app. All right, so we've got this slider down here at the bottom going on. We've also got the button. And now we need to actually start creating some sort of an interaction. What would happen if a user grabs this guy over here and just drags it over to the left? And again, we're gonna get a little bit fancy. So we're gonna create a mask. We kind of want it to tick down as we're dragging it over. So where I have 50 here, I actually want a few more values. So we're gonna, as it kind of ticks down, it's going to go, maybe it's gonna go down, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do 50. Let's say this will be, we'll make sure it's all right justified. And this one will be 45. And then we're gonna do 35. Oops. And then we're gonna do, let's say, 30. And maybe we'll stop at 25, right? And we'll go ahead and adjust the line height right here. Hopefully some of you will see kind of where we're going with this. So I'm gonna pop this up here so it lines up. Now, of course, we don't want all of this being displayed at the same time, right? We want it to be able to be masked within a group. So I'm gonna grab my rectangle and I'm simply going to drag out this rectangle across and over top of 50, right? And we're gonna use this rectangle to mask out everything else that's outside of it. So with that selected, I wanna make sure that this rectangle here, let me just go ahead, digit, mask, name it so we know what we're dealing with. And I'm gonna move it right below. I should definitely organize my layers, but I'm gonna move it right above the layer, the test layer with all of the different digits. Did I forget 40? I did forget 40, I'm terrible. I'm a terrible person. So 40 would go right here. There we go. Thank you. Who was that? Munir. Thank you, Munir. All right, so we've got that in place. And what we're going to do is with both of those layers selected, we've got the digit mask and also the digits. We're going to head up to the top, object, and then mask with shape. If you are on Windows, you would right click on the layers within your canvas and mask with shape as well. Perfect. And I can just jump in here and make some, very small changes to make sure everything lines up really nicely. All right, so now that we've got the digits, the higher end digits kind of masked, now we can go ahead and start animating this. So what we're gonna do is I'm going to duplicate this artboard over to the right, and I'm simply going to click on the artboard. I can either hold down Alt or Option and drag it over, or Command or Control and then press D. There we go. Whoops. Why did it put it up there? All right, let's put it over here. Perfect. All right, so now we have two artboards. If you're brand new to Adobe XD, the way animation and Auto-Animate works is all you really have to do is design both states. So in this case, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab this guy over here, the far slider, and just move it to approximately where 25 miles might be. Somewhere maybe right around here. It's probably not accurate, but we're gonna go with it. And I also want to drag these two over so they line up. Now, of course, I want to change the text. I don't want it to say 50. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop into the mask. I can double click on it, make sure the digits are selected over here, and then just drag this down just like this and make sure that lines up. Perfect. All right. So just like that, we've created both states. We have our first state here, which is the initial state where you have the range slider from 0 to 50. And we have our second state where we kind of pulled it back a little bit. So it's 0 to 25, because maybe you don't want to drive more than 25 miles. So what we're going to do now is we need to wire this up. So I'm going to hop into prototype mode right here at the top. And I'm going to grab this slider here. And when I do that, we have this blue handle over here to the right, and I can simply drag this handle to the second artboard. And this will basically tell Adobe XD that the animation should take place between this artboard to the left and the artboard to the right. And once I have that done, we have some properties over to the right, and we can define what the trigger is. And this is essentially what the user is going to do to trigger the action. So we have tap as the default, but in this case, we actually want a user to be able to drag that trigger over to the left. 25 should be, yes, you're probably right, Antonio, but I will see everyone in the chat is very smart, much smarter than me. I will make that change in a second. So we have drag selected for the trigger. Auto-Animate is the default action for drag, so I'll leave it at that. Easing options, if you're doing tap or you're doing some other triggers, easing options may come into play, but for drag, they really don't. So I'm gonna leave that at none. Perfect, and that's all you have to do. Now, before I go ahead and play this, let me hop back into design mode, and I'm going to fix this because all of you in chat are much smarter than me. There we go. So it snaps to the center of my document, and now it's in the center. Thank you, everyone. All right, so with that set, we're gonna play this and see what this looks like. So I'm gonna click on the first artboard, I'm gonna press play, and now all I have to do is drag this to the left. Look at that, look at that. Let me zoom in so we can really see what we're doing. Look at that counting down as we're dragging this over, right? So we got to 25. I can drag it back, forward, that sort of thing. Cool. All right, so that was a fun interaction. Now what would happen after this? Once we've set how many miles we're willing to drive, we want a second screen that actually displays maybe where we're going. So for that, I'm going to use a plugin, a magical plugin. I'm going to duplicate this artboard over just like this. And in this case, I want to create some sort of a map. And there's many ways you can create maps in Adobe XD. You can grab maps from snazzymaps.com is one of my favorite places. But in this case, I'm going to simply grab a rectangle, and I'm going to draw one out just like this. And with that rectangle, I'm going to hop down to the plugins panel down here at the bottom, and I already have the Maps Generator plugin installed, but if you don't have it, press the plus button at the top, and here are the plugins. There's a ton of plugins for Adobe XD, including a plugin for confetti, which is really fun. But if you don't have the Maps Generator, just type in Maps, press enter, and you'll be able to install it. And when you click on it, you have to have a shape selected like I just did. I'm gonna click on the Maps Generator, and you can enter a location up at the top. You can choose a zoom level. Here's kind of a preview of what those different zoom levels look like. So if you wanted something very large, you can do a zoom level of 2, but I'm going to stick with somewhere around 12. And then the different map types. So we have, all the way from very basic to a satellite view, essentially. I'll leave it at that. You can enter JSON if you wanted to really, adjust the styling and that sort of thing. And include a location pin if you wanted to, but I'm going to create my own location pin, and I'm going to simply press Generate Map. And there we go. We now have a map that's being generated that we can use in our projects, right? Super cool. Now, what are we going to do with this map? So there's a few things that we can do, right? On the very basic level, what we can do is we can hop into prototype mode. We can select our button. When someone presses the button, it simply transitions to this map. And instead of a drag trigger, we can just do a tap trigger. And maybe instead of auto-animate, we can do a transition. And maybe we'll just have it, slide to the left or push to the left or one of these two, just like that. We'll do in and out, so it's a little bit slower at the beginning, a little bit slower at the end, and a duration of 0.6 seconds. So what does this look like? Just like that. Nothing too crazy, right? So you don't have to, look at the apps that you use on a daily basis. Most of them don't have crazy animations. It's always fun to use Auto-Animate to do something crazy. But for the most part, you press a button, something happens. It either slides or it just appears. So if you want to get crazy with it, definitely get crazy with it. If you follow me on Dribbble, you know I definitely use Auto-Animate a lot. But if you want to do something simple, you can do that. But you know what? Let's get a little bit crazy. But we're going to also create a pin icon because we have to know where we're going, right? So I'm simply going to grab my ellipse tool, just like this, draw one out right about here. And maybe if I zoom in here, I can just double click on this ellipse and I can just move this down. Now, of course, that's not really looking like a pin, right? So I can hold down, I can just drag this in to kind of straighten that out. I can also double click on this right here, which will straighten out this point. So we have a nice curve at the top and we have this nice little sharp point at the bottom. I can drag it up, I can drag it down. But sometimes pin icons for maps have a little hole in the middle. So to accomplish that, I'm going to grab another ellipse and simply drag one out in the center of this icon, just like that. Now, of course, I could leave it like this, but I might want to knock out a circle from that pin icon. So I'm going to make sure to select both of these layers. So I'm going to hold down my Shift key and select both layers, and I've got both selected. And over here to the right, I'm going to use they're called Pathfinder in many applications, including Illustrator, but these are our Boolean options, so we can add the two shapes together. But in this case, we actually want to subtract them. Boop, there we go. And now we have a nice hole inside of our location icon. And I can simply double click on this to edit this if I wanted to. Hop back into my layers. I can grab this little ellipse and just drag it in if I want to make it a little bit smaller. And of course, I have complete control over the styling. I can make it a little bit red. Maybe I'll add a little bit of pink in there, right? It's not the nicest looking icon. Maybe I'll add a white border just so it stands out. And then maybe a tiny drop shadow just like this, just so we can kind of separate it from the background. Again, not the nicest. If I had some more time, I would definitely make this pin icon look a little bit nicer, but we're going to plop it right about here. This is our destination, and there we have it. So let's do this one more time. We've got our first artboard. It's not the greatest design. I would probably spend a little bit more time. I'll probably make these little icons a little bit larger. But what we can do is just drag this over here to the left, or I guess in the center of the document, to let the application know that we're willing to drive 0 to 25 miles to our destination. When we press Let's Go, the map slides over, and here is the pin icon. And then you can take it in a completely different direction if you wanted to. You can start showing, what the process is after this. How do you begin your destination? How do you begin your travel? Are there buttons down here? Does it show you nearby locations? Do you have to stop for gas? There's so many different things. Actually, you know what? I want to go to Alcatraz. I'm going to just drag this over here to Alcatraz. I've never been, but we're going to Alcatraz. Of course, you probably can't drive there, but we're going to do that. So I would love to see all of the creative ideas that you all come up with, and maybe you need to rent a car. What does that experience look like? So have fun with it. Improve on the design, because this is probably not the greatest looking design, but it's simple. It probably does its job if you're just looking to find a random location to go to, whether you're walking or driving or hopping on a plane, whatever it might be. Get creative with it and have some fun. And once you're ready to go, what you can do is hop into prototype mode, make sure this icon here is your home icon, and then you can go up to the share menu at the top, press that. You can share for review, and you can publish this on the web. So you can post it into Discord, you can post it on Behance, you can share it on Twitter, whatever it might be, and you'll be able to interact with it just like you can on the desktop. Drag triggers work, animation works, all that fun stuff. So Munir's asking, is the boop animation made with XD or After Effects? It was made with After Effects, but I can probably do something very similar. That's gonna be a challenge. I'm gonna try to recreate that with Adobe XD. That could be fun. All right, so that'll just about wrap it up for today. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in to day number 3 of the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. I will be back tomorrow with day number 4, and also stick around. We've got Colby coming up with some more XD case studies, and he's building some really cool stuff. So stick around for that. Thanks, Anna, and Dahanjay and Munir and Joy and Kita and Nyasha and everyone else joining me live this morning. I will see you all tomorrow morning with, more goodness. Who knows what we'll be designing. All right, see ya later, everyone. Words are hard.